Hi, besties, and welcome to our little corner of the internet. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Katie.
And we're girlies from McGann, hosting the podcast that takes a deep dive into the prolific and oftentimes unpredictable, unexpected, and offbeat filmography of everyone's favorite doctor, or at least our favorite, Paul McGann. And I'm sure a lot of you that listened to our last episode have been waiting for this, the second part, so I feel like we should probably just, shunt you right in there. No, we don't need a preamble for this, you guys, because if we do, it's just going to be another 10 minutes of us being like, holy fuck, we interviewed Paul McGann, which we've been doing for the last week.
It's quite crazy. We are still processing. So
yeah,
process with us. Here we go. Part 2.
And you do, not so much, but you do quite a lot of sort of war history things. I mean, you host that Real Dictators podcast. You've narrated quite a few books on the, pardon me if I'm saying this wrong, Weimar Republic. I mean, you did Chalk History Festival. Like, is that personal sort of connection the reason that do you actively seek those out for that reason, or do they just kind of happen to come to you?
Well, what I can tell you is that that the way I feel, that personal connection, and when you get to somewhere, I didn't know that there were history festivals. No one told me that there were history festivals. And recently I've started going to them, because I've fallen in with a bunch of academics and they go to these festivals as guests. And they're just like the cons that we go to. Mm-hmm. It's just the same. It's like that. There's another circuit. There's another world. And everybody loves it. Everybody knows each other. It's great. It's sociable. There's history festivals in Britain that last for a week long. The Chalk Valley Festival. And they're fantastic. And for someone like me, you're there with a few thousand others just like you. Yeah, I suppose we are. What do they call them in publishing? The general reader, right? That's me. I read history anyway. I just buy history books because I always did since I was a kid. I enjoy to read that. I read lots besides, but every other book I read seems to be a history book. And when you go to these festivals, there's your gang. Everyone else is doing it. So those podcasts, in a sense, are for those people, or at least that's what keeps those podcasts, the audience growing. When during the lad here in Bristol, who came up with the idea for Real Dictators, Pascal, he's here in the city that I'm in, and it was when things had gone quiet, whenever it was 5-6 years ago. And he said, Paul, do you ever listen to podcasts? And I said, well, kids do, I didn't. Wasn't something I do. He said, well, anyway, he said, look, I've had this idea, history this, and I'm going, well, is that going to work? I said, is there an audience for that kind of thing? He said, trust me, and I should have trusted him. He was right. And and quickly it's really, really built. I mean, now to the extent that I can be. When I was in Illinois a few weeks back, I was in some place. We were eating somewhere, and someone said to me, "Oh my God, it's you off the." Not they didn't know me by face. They heard me speak. And said, how good is that? So all over the world, people listen to these things. The audience is grown. But like I said, in effect, the tone of it, the contributors are all proper, proper academic historians. I get to sit in this box that I'm in now and read them, which I really love. And there's no end of it. There's no end of interest, because there's stacks of people just like me. I really enjoy it. And who knew, incidentally, that there were so many dictators? No, that's really, it's really good work. Again, it's something I really enjoy. I'm now sat exactly in the chair that I would sit if I were reading in this new sound booth that I've had built, which is, well, I hasten to say it's a bit like a TARDIS. In fact, I can light it from above, and there's kind of ambient. There's different colored lights that I can use, and if I tell you it's TARDIS blue, you'll know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting bathed in TARDIS blue, and I switch off the lights, and it's just me on a microphone, and it's like nighttime, bedtime stories. It's good.
That's nice.
It's good work. It's work I really, really enjoy. I found too that I don't know arcane skills, but I always was since I was a kid able to. If you put a sheet of paper, if you put a page in front of me with stuff on it, I can just read it. I mean,
Hmm.
I can cold read quite well, which helps anyway in my work. But stuff arrives. I just sit and just turn the thing on and just read. Yeah. In case you were wondering.
No, I
No,
think it's
that is
fascinating.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, I work in post-production and I work in advertising and stuff like that. So I'm always curious by how people work, their workflow, that kind of stuff. I always find that
Yeah,
really,
me
really
too. I'm the
fascinating.
same.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
you and me
yeah,
both.
it's really cool. Yeah. So it's fascinating. And it must be so comforting too, like especially like the days that you may not want to travel somewhere to do the work. So being
Yeah.
able to, roll up and just do your work at home is a blessing. I got to
It
work
is,
from
of course,
home
it's
for
all,
majority of,
again,
yeah.
because of COVID, it's all
Hmm.
fairly
Yep.
recent, or at least the realization
Hmm.
that it can be done. The tech is there.
Yeah.
Even the conventions and the fan shows, they went indoors
Hmm.
for a
Hmm.
couple of years. So, it was
Yeah.
a it was a it was a it was a moment, wasn't it? We realized that we could carry on doing things. Um, and
Yeah.
now, like the other day, I went to London to record a Big Finish adventure. Now, ordinarily, I
Okay.
wouldn't. I'd stay here because I do them now from the
Yeah.
bedroom. But I missed everybody. So there's that as well. I just
Hmm.
really wanted to see everybody. So I said, well, can you let me come to London and can you please put me in a hotel and I'll come to, and they said, okay, come on. Because it's got to be sociable as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You can't just stay in your bedroom all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not generally, like I do everything from here, even the Big Finish stuff. I
Hmm.
stand in this place and just shout my head off.
I mean,
Sure, that's fun for the other people.
I imagine
Go
doing
ahead,
the
Maggie.
live show must have been interesting in that sense, or like fun in that sense that you get to be in the same room as these people, and actually
That was
sort
the
of,
best thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And people could see us. You could see us kind of
Yeah.
interacting and yeah,
Hmm.
it was great. It was a hoot. I hope that happens
It
again.
was,
It's I don't know why it
Yeah.
wouldn't. It'd be great to do it. I mean, there was talk, and I'm not putting a kibosh on it, but there was talk of, maybe doing it again in a year's time in
Hmm.
North America, finding a room. Like,
Hmm.
but when
Yeah.
we did Chicago TARDIS, you American hotels rather than British hotels have got rooms that big.
Yeah.
yeah.
You've simply got bigger rooms than we have, so you could do it, and that would be the place to do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'd love, yeah, we should bring it over. Anyway, watch this space. But
Okay.
but it was great,
Perfect. Thank you.
and what's more, but it necessitated us. We had to rehearse it for a couple of days,
Hmm.
Hmm.
um, in order to make it look impromptu, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's what we had to do, and then just went and recorded it live. And the beauty of it was, of course, that the audiences we did how many houses? 4 shows. Each of those audiences, in effect, are on different recordings. And they took part. They
Love.
became whatever Cybermen or whatever it was, and they all
Hmm.
joined in. Yeah, it's great. Do it live. More of that,
Super fun.
please. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting getting to see like the actual, again, process nerd, but like getting to see the process and hearing them talk about like the Foley actually happening as things were happening, like as you guys were like reading throughout the script and stuff like that. It's so impressive seeing craftsmen and artists do their thing. I think it's just really, really incredible.
Yeah, you're like me. I'm the same. I like to see that. I want to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't need to see the working out, but you want to see
No, no,
people
no.
being good. In
Do it.
fact, on the second or the third show of those 4, um, the director came to us and said, "You know what? If anything, we're being too good here. We need to now." I probably shouldn't say this, but then we had to deliberately make a few mistakes
Hmm.
Oh,
because the
jeez.
audience liked it. They liked it because it went
Yeah.
wrong. We got
Yeah.
so good at it, it just flew. When really the audience really what endeared, it's like they want to see stuff go wrong because it's funny and it's sort of it's a nice moment and they could all join in. So we had to do that. So we deliberately went wrong a couple of times. There you
It's
go,
fun.
trade secret.
behind the scenes scoop.
Yeah.
A Girlies from Again exclusive. We'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah. But now that we've sort of kind of, I can't believe it took us almost 2 hours to finally get on the subject of
Yeah.
Doctor Who, but I wanted to ask a sort of question that I'm not sure will have a definitive answer for you, but I mean, between Doctor Who and Withnail, you've been part of what I think a lot of at least American audiences wouldn't consider two of kind of the biggest pieces of British sort of cinema television history of all time. And obviously, one of those has had a much longer shelf life for you in terms of Big Finish and the fact that you're still doing it 25 years on. But, what's your relationship with kind of the legacy that those two things have left behind? I mean, I know you do the conventions and, you enjoy doing
Mm.
those and getting to see people, but, Withnail just landed in the Criterion Collection. So, like, has your relationship with that legacy kind of changed over the years? Have you ever thought, like, kind of stepped back and thought, oh, like, that's an odd thing to think that I'm, one part of this massive, massive thing, and now people
Yeah.
are going to associate me with that forever.
My own, of course, I did Doctor Who first in '96, and it's gone in phases. Basically, don't forget when we made the TV pilot in '96, it was prospectively going to go to a series. It didn't. Then there was another gap of nothingness until 2004 or five. So I had to endure that. And I say endure because it felt like a failure.
Hmm.
What the fans now call the wilderness years, which I love. That was me. And I couldn't help but think, I, I mean, look, I was already within weeks, was already busy doing other things. That's my life, but that's an actor's life. But I remember the sense of disappointment. And so that was the first phase of thinking, oh, they're going to hold us responsible for this, for this nothingness, for this failure. And then, of course, then when 2005 comes, and then now it's all this talk, there's going to be another series. Um, I'm thinking, what are they going to do? Is the phone going to ring? Am I going to get involved? Am I going to get to? Well, right. If this goes how it usually goes, they're going to have to call me, and we're going to do. Me and Chris Eccleston are going to have to do this scene where he becomes me, blah blah. The phone didn't ring,
Hmm.
so
It's rough.
nothing. And so then, in a sense, my suspicions were confirmed. I thought, so I really, I can joke about it now, but I'd gone the way of Peter Cushing. Don't even mention that guy. Like,
Hmm.
that's how it was. That's how it felt. So it's like now I've never, even to this day, I've never spoken to Russell T Davies. I'm only saying that because, I don't know, maybe fans imagine we go out to eat all the time. I said, well, we all know each other. We don't. Um, we've never had any contact, but certainly had no contact then. And then once it came back, um, I just felt part of. You asked the question about legacy. I felt part of nothingness, and thought, okay, well, they won't talk about it. I better not talk about it either. So it just simply wasn't mentioned. Took a while.
Mm.
And then, but of course, in 2001, 2002, Big Finish had already started. We were already doing the audios. By the time Chris Eck came back in 2005, I was already doing 3 years of, so we were back doing it. So that in a sense that there's a kind of awkwardness. Um, and I never knew what was going to come next, and never really felt, uh, you know, part of the whole or part
Mhm.
of the whole thing, until probably, I don't know, quite a few series in fact,
Hmm.
after Chris Eck had gone, and also when Russell T Davies had cause to mention, I think somebody had asked him about what we'd done in Vancouver in '96, and he, bless him, he'd said it was really important. And once he'd said it, and he gave his reasons. He said, "No, no, without that, we could never have blah blah blah." And so once he'd said that, it was suddenly. I know. I remember tangibly. I started to appear then on composite photographs. The way you see those composite photographs
Hmm.
at the,
Yep.
at the like lineups. Suddenly I was
The
on them.
lighthouse, yes.
Like the kid who missed his school photograph. He had flu that day,
Just
and he appears
paste
in
it
a kind of
in.
little
Yeah.
bubble or a cloud. And suddenly there I was there at the back. And then over the next few years, I was working my way sort of front and center. Anyway, it took a while. I'm joking about it,
Hmm.
but that really is the way that it happened.
Hmm.
That the import that and suddenly, like, what do the fans say? You're not canonized until it's decided that you're part of the of
Hmm.
the whole of the whole schmear. But I really really thought me and Peter Cushing were
Hmm.
going to be. There was a place in Hades reserved for the pair of us. I really did. I really thought that
Oh.
was that was how it was going to be, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And then since, particularly since, like I mentioned, Big Finish, but between 2001 2005, Big Finish was the only Doctor Who thing being made. It was the
Hmm.
only show in town. So, and we were doing them. So that really revived the interest in it, and of course, what we did from the off, what I was asked to do, we we did, was we did Eighth Doctor adventures, and in a way where we could, I suppose I even began, because again we got to decide on our own scripts, or rather Big Finish did, and we were able to, I suppose, include certain elements in those early Big Finish scripts, facets of the Eighth Doctor that perhaps we would have seen in a TV series that might have been made in Canada 10 years before. It's all sort of ifs and maybes, but
Hmm.
it's Doctor Who we're talking about, so that's exactly right. It's been phases of it, and
Yeah.
really, it's only you know what? Honestly, it's really only since the 50th, 10 years
Hmm.
ago, um, we Moffat called me. We made the short, the red button thing, Night of the Doctor, which they included in that 50th anniversary weekend, and then it went big. Then rather that since then, I remember because we went to Chicago. TARDIS was the same month, and that was
Oh, wow.
just after the 50th. We went that same week. We went to Chicago, and I remember it was just different. Suddenly, it all went. It went. It was great. The penny dropped as well. I remember. I don't think I'm wrong. No, it was right. It's
You
like the
weren't.
penny dropped with American audiences, at least the ones
It did.
we were about Big Finish. Up
Hmm.
until,
It
I mean, they sort
exploded.
of, yeah, it really
Yeah.
really took off. And in the 10 years
Yeah.
since, in the last 10 years, I've just felt really just like one of the family. I felt part of it, and
Hmm.
really really got to enjoy it. When going back right to the beginning, when in '96, when I was being asked to do it, and then I agreed to do it with Phil Siegel, and we went out to Vancouver to shoot it. Everybody knows Janet Fielding, who'd been a Doctor Who companion, and now since left the business, and was my agent. She was my agent.
So funny.
Again, something hadn't occurred to me. We'd never had that conversation. It hadn't occurred to me that she'd been an actor, so we'd never talked about it. But I remember, but she came out to Vancouver for those first few days. And when we started, McCoy was there and Daphne Ashbrook was there, and we began to shoot. And Daphne said, "Paul, this ain't like any other gig you'll ever have. But it's for all kinds of ways." She said, I won't even, she said, "I'm just saying there will never be anything like it, not now or ever. Whatever happens to this thing you're shooting, it'll be this job and all the other jobs you've ever done." And she was right. It's just different. Um, and it's a joy. It's a joy to be associated with. A
Hmm.
lot of it goes on, without you and despite you, and but it's a lovely feeling that, to be part of something that's gone on for decades and is likely to carry on for decades.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a kind of family feel to it. It's you, and it's that you're part of something. And I really, really do. As you could probably tell from when we met in Chicago, Maggie, I really enjoy it. I don't do many of those. I don't go to many of the fan shows, but a handful. But I really do enjoy it when we're there, because
Hmm.
everybody's there for the same reason. And there's a kind of joy to it. Um, the hoot.
Yeah.
Long may it continue. You know, people, of course, and fans, of course, are always saying, well, you know, what's going to happen? You know, they hear rumors of
Hmm.
this and that. They're always just rumors, but it's
Yeah.
one of
Till it's in a
one
trade,
of
it's not real.
that's right.
Yeah.
You know, part of the beauty, part of it is that anything can happen. It's Doctor Who.
Hmm.
Hmm.
They can go
Hmm.
sideways, they can go backwards, they can redo this, they can bring so and so back. It's like, you know, it's all up for grabs. So so long as you're still here, I'm still here.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows in a year's time or 2 years time, whatever, you know, as the formats change, as there's, you know, what the fans want. I think because it's Russell T, who's even without Doctor Who, he's a brilliant TV maker. He knows what to do. He's very good at it. He knows what the fans want, and so he's got his ear to the ground. Like, you know, so anything could happen, and I'm kind
Yeah.
of ready for that as well. I'm here to tell
Hmm.
you, you know, and we all
Yeah.
are. We all say the same, you know, to one another and in private, you know. Imagine if they asked us all to da da da, and we go, yeah, wouldn't that be great? You know, we're all into it
Hmm.
because we just know what a laugh it would be,
Yeah.
aside from anything else. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think
I'm loving it.
for us running this show, I mean, just in the, sort of what, 8, 9 months we've been doing this, like watching people come together and, on socials or in person in places like Chicago and watching people sort of collect together because of this one thing that we all really like. Like that's such a unique feeling. And a lot of times you can get it more often in sort of online spaces. But I mean, for me specifically with Doctor Who, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but I grew up on the new series with Tennant and with Eccleston and everything. And then I kind of fell off of it in high school and then into college because I was like, oh, that's, it's kid stuff. And then I met Katie and she was the one that said to me, because I think you were going to Gallifrey 1 or something like soon after we
Yeah.
met.
Or
And
I've
so she
had,
said,
yeah.
there's this movie, you're familiar with Doctor Who, you should watch it. And so I kind of, when I think of Doctor Who, I kind of always think of that as being the thing that kind of brought me back into the fold. So kind of without your doctor, I probably this I wouldn't be in the position I am with fandom, with my
No,
job, things like that. In the way that it kind of all just built from Katie sending me a text going, "Hey, watch this movie," and then it just kind of spiraled out from there into this, which I never thought in high school when I was watching
oh,
Doctor Who that hey, I'm going to be hosting a podcast about one of them in 10 years time.
it's
Yeah.
joyous. I'm so happy
It's
to hear
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So Big Finish is
It's
kind of the
really
thing that
true.
like, yeah, where it's kind of constant back and
Keep
forth
coming
of
back.
like, yeah.
But there's like, but, you know, I mean, we started, you know, hours ago talking about David Bowie, you know, and whether you meet to adore Bowie or whatever it is, you know, whatever the thing is, it's a lovely thing to do. It's part of it. It's, you know,
Hmm.
we like to, I don't know, we like to find one another. Well, again, down the years, particularly doing the fan shows, you know, I've seen now over 20, 30 years, I've seen people meet other people, relationships form,
Hmm.
you know, businesses
Mhm.
start,
Yep.
you know, it's just lovely. It's a lovely, and you know, and now, you know, to go to these shows, you're seeing lots of people again. You know, there's just a lovely, you know, despite whatever else is going on in the world, just for those few days, you know, these are your people. These are, you know, these people you've known for a long time, and you know, you're there to kind of share something. What's wrong with
It's
that?
very insular. It's very an insular environment. Like I go to Galley. I've been to Galley for it's been a minute since I've been, but we're going this year. This will be Maggie's first time,
Mm,
and this is mine in a while. But the times that I've been to other conventions too, like bigger, like how you were saying the fan shows and stuff like that. But nothing feels the way that like the Gallifrey ones, the Chicago TARDISes feel.
mm,
Like it's smaller. It's
yeah.
dedicated to one specific, fandom, and the people there just all really care and are all really sweet and stuff like that. Because I know there's always drama that happens, but like it's not like that there. And I love going there because like you said, like you meet people, you've built relationships, friendships, all this stuff. There's certain people that I don't get to see until they come there. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
the family gets back together and we get to see each other for that weekend. And then it's wonderful. It just fills your cup back
Yeah,
up. And then
It's a great
It's great.
excuse, you know. It's just to
Yeah,
get out, get on the plane,
be
get in your
nerds.
car. Yeah, go and be nerds somewhere.
Yeah.
Does you
I
good.
know.
Come on.
It
Yeah,
does.
it
Everyone
really
should be a
does you
little
good.
weird every once in a while.
Yeah, and enjoy being a little weird. Yeah, exactly
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. Without the weird, we wouldn't get the Bowies. So, you know.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely
very
right.
true.
We thought he was an alien. I'm
I think he
convinced he still
is.
was.
I still think he is.
Bless him. Mhm.
Well, I think the bringing back again a little more to the history of whatnot. We both read Stephen's book last year, and it was probably one of the best books that we got a chance to read over the
Oh
course of
wow. Flesh and blood.
2024.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, it was beautiful. Like the way that he was able to talk about like the medical aspects of things while also bringing like the really personal and
Mm.
historic. It just, I hadn't read anything like that before, and it was really 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 beautiful. And I hope he writes another one. So two-prong question. Part of my favorite part of the book was learning about your uncle who was kind of a part of the Titanic, like the escape of, like he was on the Titanic, which I thought was
Hmm.
super super fascinating. I'm trying to find my notes real quick. Uh
Yeah.
he wrote that at the time of the inquiries, your uncle was kind of dismissed as a pertinent witness to the events that transpired in 1912. Do you think like your participation in the film The Titanic Inquiry and then the upcoming podcast that you're doing about Titanic is kind of giving voice to your uncle's legacy all these years later?
The Titanic inquiry, no. Well,
Okay.
as you know, that was based on transcripts
Hmm.
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the inquiry.
Hmm.
Whereas the podcasts, which, in fact, when I've talked to you, I have to do another episode of. Um,
Fun.
we're still halfway through, I think, the Titanic ones. But I know that Jimmy, that's my great uncle Jim, will, you know, he's going to get his own episode. Um, so certainly, we'll do his memory justice then.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Fascinating. When we were children, you know, there was talk of him. You
Hmm.
know, old
Yeah.
aunties would talk about Titanic McGann. You know, and we were small children. And what are they talking about? And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, yeah, in everybody's family, there's all kinds of weird stories, aren't there? And these characters, and and then it was years late, and we'd hear these stories. You know, there was a McGann on the Titanic, but there was no way of proving it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we kind of almost half dismissed it, but suddenly someone invented the internet, and Stephen found him. There he was.
Yeah.
There he was.
It's
He was
incredible.
part of the crew, and in fact, um, almost by accident, has been portrayed in different films, in
Oh
dramas,
wow.
including Cameron's one. Well, Jimmy was, well, in his own testimony, he describes he's now credited as being perhaps the last person to speak with the captain, the last, you know, and he talks about it in. He gave an interview, didn't he, to the New York Herald, and he spoke at the inquiry in Nova Scotia, and he talks about. You can just find this online. Just James McGann Titanic, but he talks
Mhm.
about it's him. He's there with Captain Smith. Captain Smith has these two stray children, this boy and this girl. And Jimmy and his mates are trying to exhort the captain to jump. Anyway, in the end, the captain gives Jimmy one of the children. This happened, according to Jimmy. And the captain keeps the other, and they have to jump. It's 40 feet, whatever. The kids don't survive. The captain doesn't
Mhm.
survive, but Jimmy's credited with being the last to see him. That's my great uncle. And that scene has been either attempted or is part of stories that have been shot. There's the
Mhm.
captain there, the children. Um, anyway, there he is, and yeah, and Stephen finally got to write about it. It's just strange,
Hmm.
um, and I suppose for our family, remarkable that it took the internet, for I remember Stephen calling me, he said, you know what? Are you sitting down? It's true. He was real. He was real, you know. There. So yeah, we're going to get to talk of him. I know when we recently on some of the D-Day podcasts that we did, you may have listened to it, Stephen, you know, which I narrated, but the one that specifically concentrated on my father, our father, Stephen he was the contributor. Stephen got to speak of it because my dad had spoken to him, you know, most on his deathbed, I think, about the experience. So Stephen related all this stuff. Yeah, poignant, you know. And for us, it's remarkable as well. It's just having, I don't know, one can always laugh, you know, it's almost like they're Zelig figures, you know, whatever, these big things happen. There's always a McGann there somewhere in the background, you know. Stephen used to laugh.
Hello.
Remember one conversation, Stephen saying to me, he said, I watched that Gangs in New York. He said, and he said, I'm here to tell you, you know, that Eugene McGann, this is the McGann that had to, he came over from Ireland during the famine with his family, you know, arrived in Liverpool. That's why we ended up in Liverpool. But he'd been in New York for 2, 3 years prior to that, living in Five Points, New York. 2 of his kids were born there. And then they ended up in Liverpool. So, you know, Stephen's going, you want to talk about that Gangs in New York? There was a McGann there. Titanic, there's a McGann back. So he's, yeah, we're laughing. Yeah. So you just pan left. There's a McGann standing there. Anyway, so it's funny. But
It's really funny.
yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to narrating. He was my dad's uncle, my grandfather's brother, James McGann. Yeah, and he
Incredible.
worked. Yeah, he was a stoker. You know, he worked in the bowels of the ship. You know, 5 floors down. So they were the last off. He, as you know from Stephen's book, you know, they escaped on the very last lifeboat, the famous collapsible B. They pushed it into the sea, it turned turtle. These men had to stand on top of it until they were rescued. And Jimmy survived on that. So, yeah, stories, stories,
Fortitude.
stories, stories.
I
We just
know.
got stories. We need stories. People love stories, don't they? That's how I make a living. That's how, you know, we've all got this, you know, this bottomless appetite since we were children, haven't we? Just for stories.
Do
Thank
you think
God.
you would ever have inclination to write a book similar to what Stephen did? Like you just were just saying everyone needs stories and stuff like that. Is that something that has ever called to you?
Well, yeah, what a question. I've never, honestly, though I read voraciously, always have. Um, it's never occurred to me to write anything. I think
I
because
think you should.
I live with a writer. Stephen's a writer. Stephen's wife's a writer.
Mhm.
You know, I've got writers in the family. I see what they do. I see also
Yeah.
what it costs them.
Yeah.
I see the work that goes into it. I don't do that. I don't
Mhm.
know that um, recently, uh, the, a fella, maybe I shouldn't tell you this. Maybe I will tell you this because we're speaking. Um, whatever. Um, but there's a book came out last year. A fella called Toby Benjamin wrote this. He produced this book on Withnail and I.
Yeah,
And he spoke
it's on my shelf.
right.
It's sitting on my shelf
What's it
below me.
called? From cult to classic,
Yeah,
and
something
it
like
was
that.
it was a huge surprise. I mean, when he was, you know, it took him over the couple of years that he was trying to get it together, and he was speaking to everybody. I'd met this guy before. I met him years ago, and then, you know, he was a writer and a journalist. I knew what he did. Um, anyway, so he produced this book, and the book was a great success. Uh, honestly, if you like Whistle and I but don't have the book, buy the book. It's the last word, effectively. But anyway, why am I telling you this? Why? Because Toby also said to me a few months ago, "Come on, Paul, um, you've got to do your autobiography." I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Yes, you have." And he said, "And if you want help, I'll do it. I'll do it with you. I'll do it for you."
Oh.
He said, "I do that. That's one of the things I do."
Hmm.
Um, anyway, I'm only telling you this because you asked, but it's the only, and I'm still thinking about it. But I'm still instinctively, just not really that interested. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I've just never. I'm a bit like, I don't know. Do you know who I mean by Louise Brooks? Do you know who Louise Brooks is? Louise
Hmm.
Brooks, one of my heroines, silent movie star, American. Um, Later in her life, she turned writer and critic, and she could write as brilliantly as she could act. Anyway, she wrote this one essay she wrote was why I will never write my autobiography. And anyway, basically the long and the short of it was, that she said, unless you're going to include the love, the sex, the this, the that, all of it, what are you, why do it?
Why
And
do
I
it?
kind of,
Yeah.
I kind of think I instinctively, I kind of go along with that. I
Hmm.
would put it out, I would do it if it meant, you know, I want to say warts and all. What a horrible expression, but I don't know. I'm not going to do it. I just know I'm not. In fact, even as I'm
Yeah.
talking to you now, I'm talking myself out of doing it. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for hearing that out. You see, I've used you as a sort of therapy board,
It's fine. That's what we're here for. This is a safe
but
space.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to read biographies sometimes. It's not the
Yeah.
first thing I'll go
Hmm.
for, but if they're artfully written, I'll certainly read them. But um, they're always partial. They're always,
Yeah.
I mean,
you've got to sort of work your way through them. I don't know that I wouldn't be that interested in it,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one thing I do wish on that score is I wish I'd kept journals all that
Mm.
time. I keep sort of half journals and one line things and sort of diary entries kind of thing. But I wish I'd have had it. Like Richard E. Grant, for example, who we met on Withnail, we worked on Withnail together. And, we've
Mhm.
known each other since. Rich has always kept diaries. He wrote everything down all the time. So, you can ask him anything. He wrote it down. He's got it written down. And part of me is slightly envious of that quality. I wish I'd had the kind of, the notion and the wherewithal and the discipline to do it.
Hmm.
It's just not me. It's just not me there. And so now
Yeah.
if I, no, I'm like most of us. I think, it's all back there somewhere. And even even now to sitting talking to you and talking about things like, we talked about downtime or we talk about stuff from 20 years ago. I'm kind of fascinated, though you probably remember it better than I would. And to me now, it's all just a kind of, it's like most of us, what right do we have of remembering in any trustworthy detail about things that we did when we were 15 or 25 or
Yeah.
it's hard. It's
Yes,
hard
it
because
is.
other
It
people
is.
remember better than you do. People who maybe
Hmm.
perhaps felt the effect, or
Hmm.
people you were
Hmm.
with, or people you left, or people you did a good or a bad turn for or to.
Hmm.
They're going to remember it. Your family's going to remember it. Anyway, there we are.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of, as a writer, I do things, outside of my job, but I do a lot of writing for my job. I always say that, like, I feel like if you're drawn to being a storyteller, there's usually, and this is not always the case, but there's usually sort of one particular medium that you're always drawn to. Like
Mm,
mine has kind of always been words. Like I always feel like I can get the sentiment out better when it's physically on paper or on a, Google Doc or whatever. Like we record
mm,
this and sometimes I listen to myself as words are coming out of my mouth and I'm like, what are you doing? Like there's a certain, I feel like if I give myself the time to think and put it down on paper, it makes more sense. And for some people, that's not the case. For some people, they're oral storytellers or my brother's a very visual person. He went to film school.
yeah.
He's incredible with film in a way that I've never understood. I think there's certain mediums that people are drawn to, and maybe some people, as they get older, they move into maybe one or the other, or they add a couple to that repertoire. But I think it makes sense to me you saying like maybe not necessarily something that I feel like I fully vibe with. Like I feel like I could never be a filmmaker. That's why I write about movies because that sort of in my brain it makes more sense to me to do it that way if
Yes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And to me, yeah, makes perfect sense to me.
Hmm.
You either have that facility or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I love to read. I
Hmm.
absolutely. I mean, writers to me are heroic. I mean, people who have that
Yeah.
facility, who have that gift, who have that talent, are able to do it, and tell the truth while they're doing it. Wow,
Hmm.
what a, if I could come back as anything, perhaps it would be that, somebody who had that gift. Stephen can really write as well.
Hmm.
My
It's
brother,
beautiful.
he can write, because it's not a given, and I remember too, he won't mind my saying this, because his wife's a professional writer.
Hmm.
And so when he quite fancied that he might like to write a book, I mean, there's going to be a bit of pressure there in the house. I'm guessing, she's, that the pressure's on, but
Yeah.
he did it. He did it, and now I know he's on another one now. He's on his third or his fourth book.
Oh,
Fair play to him.
amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's just another
It's
string, to
exciting.
his bow. Yeah, lovely.
You had brought up Christopher Eccleston too while we were talking about Doctor Who, and he recently wrote an autobiography. It was very personal about like his struggles with depression and
Mm,
his relationship with his father and how his father went through oh my gosh,
yeah.
dementia. And it was beautiful. Again, it was another book that I had read this past year. Like I was talk about I hear you on voracious reading. Like Maggie and I are also very voracious readers, and I like for some reason memoirs seem to be the thing that I was reading the most this past year. And that one and Stephen's book really were those standouts for me because it just the personalness of it and just having
Yeah.
the gumption and the bravery to be so vulnerable, and it was written such in a way that was so incredibly
I'm
vulnerable.
really glad to hear that. I know
Mhm.
Chris, and I know too, but only because I read things about his book. I've not read his book, but I read about his book.
Yeah.
And again, I know what it cost him to
Hmm.
to get it down and to put it
Hmm.
out, and I really admire that because it's not easy that. And while
No,
again,
it's
going back,
not.
it's not something that all of us could do either, or would choose to
Hmm.
do. It's quite a choice that it's a hard choice, and
Hmm.
and I'm glad to hear that you think that that it was worth it, and he's written
Hmm.
something really, really good. Talented man,
Yeah,
actually,
the
Chris.
the last chapter made me cry like a baby. I
Yeah.
was it was and it
Mm.
was it resonated. It resonated.
Mm.
And grieving and loss and stuff like that just really
And you
resonated.
know
It
what?
was
In
quite
the
moving.
end, as well, I mean, temperamentally, I suppose. Again, I'm speaking for myself now, not for Chris, but in the end, it's whether. I mean, I feel like a very private person
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah,
just naturally.
me
I was a
too.
private child, that was my
Hmm.
temperament. Nothing's changed, and I'm still that sort of private child, probably. Even as a middle-aged man. But and that side, that part of me, wouldn't want to write a book about
Hmm.
Yeah.
myself that
Yeah,
people would.
I
I
hear
just
that.
it ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna. It's as simple
Yeah.
and as easy as that.
Hmm.
And this is not necessarily needs to be something as personal as like we just said, vulnerable as your life story, but there's got to be some kind of story that's in there. I'm just trying to get you to write a book, Paul. I'm sorry.
You
This is
know
our
what,
this is our pitch
That's
deck
it.
for you. Yeah.
Katie? If I do, it's all gonna be your fault. And
Okay,
um
I'll take it. I
and
will take that mantle.
well, yeah, but if I did, then I suppose the way I'm thinking aloud here, help me out, but I suppose the way to do it would be to take an element of, something personal, of something I know, something I've
Hmm.
done, or something I've,
Yeah.
been part of as a jumping off point, and just
Yeah.
run with it from that, just start up.
Hmm.
So I don't,
Hmm.
that's how to do it. Anyway, let's not talk me out of it. Let's
Yeah, we'll
change the
put a
subject
pin in that.
while the going's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of changing the subject, though, you brought up Louise Brooks, and we wanted to talk to you a bit about your sort of love for silent film because you're going to be at Slapstick Film Festival, I think, in Bristol next month.
Yeah, 4 weeks from
And
now. Yeah.
yeah, and that's something, you've done it a lot before. You've done Hippodrome Silent Film Festival, you've San Fran Film
Mm.
Festival. So what is the draw to silent film for you?
Jaws of silent film for me is its film. It's the birth, obviously, it's the birth of film. Um, how to condense my love for silent film into 30 seconds? Well, um, I'm someone that well, I've come to think, and I'm not alone in this, that some of the best actors that ever lived were working before 1928.
Hmm.
They were working in those conditions when film was new. There were already geniuses working in the medium. It's astonishing to think. Well, film's a
Hmm.
20th century. Oh, it was invented in the late 19th century, but the film business and movies were made in the early part of the 20th century, and almost straight away there were geniuses
Hmm.
attracted to it, working in it, films that were made which have stood the test of time. Again, one of the things, if you go to a silent movie festival or anywhere that silent movie fans gather for the benefit of people that may be just arriving to it, you often hear um, this fact relayed that of all, given that the silent era was 20 plus years, effectively it ends in 28, 29 when talkies come in. So you've got a 20-year period of early film. And it was a world art form, of course, don't forget, because there's no language barrier. So everybody made it. The Russians made it. The Swedes were making it. It's made in South Africa. It's made in China. It's made in America. Everyone's making it and selling to each other and exhibiting all over the world. It's a world art form. Because the talkies killed that, of course, because, aside from the language barrier. Anyway, the point being that of all of the stuff that was made in those 20 years, now, aggregately, probably less than 10% of all the films that were ever made in that period have survived, even in partial form, even
Hmm.
in fragments. So so all of these festivals and all of this love and all of it, that every time a silent movie's on somewhere, it's one of this
Hmm.
10% of stuff that survived. Some have survived intact, others, half survived. A lot of other silent pictures, great ones, plainly great films. We know that from journalists at the time saying this is a great film, and reports, and just didn't survive. All copies have gone. Full-length features made in America, even they've gone, but and all we have left are stills, or the stills that were taken. We know the costumes, even elements may have survived, except but we can't watch the film.
Hmm.
Um, I go to silent again. It's another life I have. Um, I do silent festivals. I work sometimes at silent festivals. I get to read. I get to read narrations,
Hmm.
either intertitles or translations from, I don't know, from Swedish or from whatever, Russian, whatever. And that's fantastic. I work with musicians. I've worked in, there's me reading live events, The San Francisco one, for example, is a great one. The two biggest, well, arguably the two biggest, the ones that I've gone to, is the one in San Fran, which is a week long. For the most part, it's been in the Castro Theatre, so you got that period
Hmm.
theatre, everything's in there. Sometimes you got full orchestras.
Oh.
And there's another one in a place called Pordenone in Italy, which is about an hour north of Venice. A week long. You're talking about thousands of people. So again, it's another it's another thing that you might not have realized. Like
Hmm.
thousands of fans attend these things, and they're just as loving and just as enthusiastic as the ones we go to. Anyway, so that's my life. I go to these things, and I've always adored them. And in 4 weeks' time, yep, we'll be back at Bristol Silence. Introducing more, showing more. But if you love film, and we all love film, don't we? Why
Hmm.
would you not want to know about how it was pioneered, where it came from? Why do they do it like
Yeah.
that? You know, Again, I'm going to generalize and simplify, but and I've worked on films, I've been in films, I've acted in films. All of the grammar, all of the techniques, all of the machinery, all had to be coined, all had to be invented. Everything, somebody had to think of it.
Hmm.
How do we get that camera to move? Oh, you put it on this. A dolly's invented. You put something on wheels. Initially when, again, I'm generalizing now, but, with the very earliest films you see, I mean, the dramas you see were stagey. You might get one fixed camera looking at almost like a cross arch thing and people walking in and out, like they would onto a stage. Someone now has got to invent a way of moving the camera or panning the camera, making it move. Um, Now, what does that mean now? It means that the actors now, and someone's now going to invent, cross cut or close up. Someone thought of it. and then you get photo montage, and then you get somebody editing, and then you get some, so, and it happens so quickly. And again, perhaps a misapprehension about silent films, or you might not realize that if all you ever saw, most of us came to silence perhaps through watching on TV, those little sort of slapsticky Keystone Cops, one-reeler comedy thing, which is great. You see, and perhaps, and everyone's running too fast and moving in a jagged fashion, and yeah, and you think, oh, well, that's what people, when 100 years ago, that's what cinema must have looked like. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. It looked beautiful. Everybody moved at a normal pace. The cameras were cranked by hand, of course, at a speed before the machinery took over. And when audiences in the teens and in the tens and in the teens and in the 20s were watching movies, everybody moved at normal pace. The films weren't scratched; they were flawless. They were backed by, many of them were backed by silver nitrate. This is where the expression silver screen comes from.
Yeah.
So they, imagine being in that audience. You're there. This thing literally shimmers. It looks gorgeous. We know from contemporary reports and diaries, people used to just gasp at the beauty of it. Anyway. And so I suppose what these festivals try to do in a funny modern way, where we can, is to try but you can't recreate those conditions anymore. I don't know, you can't, there's no such thing as silver, backed film. It was too dangerous. It was killing people. So, and there had to be musical accompaniment wherever the film was shown, so that we can do that. We can get music, we can get musicians to play, and that's what we do at the festivals. We get real musicians playing, and these beautiful restorations of these old classics are shown. Again, the idea that all they could attempt might have been short one-reelers or no. Within, even before 1910, 1915, they were making full-length novelizations. There were full-length Shakespeare's being made. There were probably three Ben-Hurs made before 1920. I mean, they were going for it. They were making epics, and audiences were lapping them up. What a great period.
Yeah.
Years ago, but 20 years ago, Ken Branagh, who I'd been at, Mr. Ken, I'd been at, I was at RADA with Ken, and another silent movie fan actually, and he called me, he rang me, he said, "Do you want to make a silent picture?" I said, "Ken, that's not possible." He said, "Well, it's," he said, "well, it's not quite." Anyway, we had this short conversation. He said, "It's not quite a sight. It's not exactly that, but it's a film in silence." I said, "Oh, well, when?" He said, "Monday." Typical conversation. Where? My house. So I went to his house and we shot this thing called Listening. It's a short. I think it's about 15, 20 minutes
Oh,
long. And
he did that? I didn't know that.
yeah, Ken shot it.
That's a beautiful short.
Yeah, we shot it in Ken. Ken made. And he said, "Come and we'll
Oh,
have a go.
wow.
We'll have a go and we'll try and do a film." And of course, it's a conceit because it's not a silent movie at all. It's a
Yeah.
movie set in a silent retreat. And Frankie Barber plays this woman who, I think we see her at the beginning. She's arguing with her fella or something, or there's this bust up, and she ends up in this retreat. And my character's there. I think he's deaf. He's born deaf, and he doesn't speak. And anyway, they're not allowed to speak. It's a retreat. And in the course of this short film, these two people have to meet. They're sort of magnetized. I think they fall in love, or they have some kind of relationship in this. And we have to do it without dialogue. We have to do it without words. Anyway, that was Ken's plan. We'll do this thing.
Beautiful.
But I remember when we got to, and it was hard. And when we got to the end of this 2 or 3 day shoot, me and Ken and Frankie sitting there, and Ken said, "Well, if we didn't know before, now we know, how accomplished silent movie actors were." Because that ain't easy. Now because we've me and Frank and Ken, and we've grown up with dialogue and been able to say words and elucidate and just speak the speech. Whereas back then, no, it was a different vibe, and yet there were beautifully subtle actors working in that period. I'll tell you one in particular I really like. Tony Perkins, who's in Psycho. His
Hmm.
father was an actor, Osber Perkins,
Oh.
a silent
Oh,
movie actor. And if you
huh.
ever get a chance to see anything Osber Perkins in, watch him. He keeps still. He's like a modern actor par excellence. He's managed to
Hmm.
keep still, just letting it happen. You can see into his eye. He's doing his thinking, his work.
Hmm.
Just like
Mhm.
but it's in the early 20s. Anyway, long-winded way of saying here's to the actors from that period because they, like I
Yeah.
say, they were like just as good as Harvey Keitel and just as good as De
Mhm.
Niro and just as good as anyone working today, just working under different conditions. And of course, this misnomer as well. You've got me started now. I'm going to bang on about it. But this
No,
misnomer,
keep going, please.
silent movie is a complete misnomer when, of course, it was
Hmm.
anything but. We make silent movies now.
Hmm.
In those days, on those sets, these were kind of construction sites. It was
Yeah.
noisy as
Mhm.
hell.
They
They'd have
were.
wind machines, people shouting, people shouting through megaphones. The celebrated actors, the principal actors, the famous ones, could ask for musicians that they
Hmm.
knew. Sometimes it might be like a string quartet or a half orchestra or whatever, and they could afford it. They'd get them in, in order. Listen, I got to play a love scene with Lillian Gish or whatever. Can you come in and play that bit of whatever,
The
Wagner,
mood music.
whatever? Yeah, and they would have that. So those sets were anything but. But of course, once talkies came in,
Hmm.
we came into the age now that we work in, where that red light goes on outside, and everybody has to keep stum.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We're working in
I
silence, not them. There you go.
I read a book again. I'm going to talk about the books I read, so prepare yourself. Last year I read a book called The Daughter of Daring, and it was about Helen Gibson, Hollywood's first stunt woman, and she started in the silence. And the writer talks about she kind of has a more of a feminist lean into what
Mm,
was going on in Hollywood at the time. But I had no clue that like a lot of the silent pictures were like directed by women. They were written by women. They were starring women.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was incredible how much of the industry as a whole women touched. And I thought it was really fascinating. And then to find out
That's
about
true.
Helen,
Yeah, that
yeah,
that
like
is that is true. That is true. In
yeah,
in a way that now would surprise us. I think one caveat
yeah.
there is that, particularly in the early 20s, and now in North America, in what became Hollywood, the role of
Hmm.
director wasn't as, what's the word? It wasn't as important. Not
Hmm.
to the not to
Hmm.
the movie makers, not to the producers. So in a sense, both women and men, there was a lot of
We're
work
doing
for
it.
them. Directors,
Hmm.
but directors were. It wasn't until slightly later in there was no sort of auteur system, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so that was good because what it meant was that women and men were considered equal and equally
Hmm.
able to
Yeah.
direct in a way that it took probably decades afterwards for us to find again.
It just was really fascinating too because she was originally like a stunt writer. She was like in like the rodeo and she was in between gigs in like California and they were looking for stunt writers and she like basically signed on and she ended up becoming like she had her own like set of serials and she was like super popular and she worked to like have her own production company and like and the stunts that she was doing, like there was one stunt that they talked about in the book where she essentially jumped out of a plane and
Yeah.
the man that was flying the plane was realized what she was going to do and he was like, I'm not letting you do that. And she's like, well, he's like, we'll fake it. We'll, make it look like it's lower or whatever, and then we'll just do like a cut or something like that. And so I guess they got up in the air to prepare to do that. And in the midst of them getting up in the air, she started shimmying out of her belt. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm doing this stunt. So angle me to where I need to go so that I can do it." And she did it. So, I mean, and that was without padding, that was without
Yeah.
safety
Yeah.
precautions that we have now. It's just, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's
It's like
insane.
watching that Buster
The
Keaton, scene where the house falls around him, where, we've parodied that a million times with, all the safety netting. It's like, no, they had one go.
They did, and it could have killed him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, they were pioneers, those people, and
Yeah.
and some of them paid with their lives for it, or they'd
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
spending months in hospital because of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but they were the pioneers. They were the brave ones. Good for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah,
Helen Gibson.
it was cool.
Yeah.
Helen Gibson, yeah. She was a really fascinating woman. She went through some hard times though too. It was just I
Mm.
think like how you were talking about the rise of the talkies and stuff like that. She was on the top of her game in the midst of the talkies. And I think because again, this is leaning more towards the feminine side of things, the feminist side of things, but like I think because men in the studio environment had so much power that women were kind of shut out of the rooms to be able to kind of like talk about funding and getting the stuff that they needed and stuff like that. And because of that, she kind of suffered I don't want to say consequences, but suffered from that. And she dealt with a lot of like I think she tried to do her own thing and she got in with
Mm.
the wrong people in terms of like funding and backing and stuff like that and just kind of blew up in her face. But she like lived through all of this and like kind of came out the other side and built a life for herself, post kind of all those setbacks. But
Did
it
did
was a
she
really
write her own
fascinating
book?
book.
Did she write
No,
an
she didn't.
autobiography? No.
No, she didn't. No, I don't think she did.
What a
But
pity.
the writer who wrote it, she also did another book about the woman who was what was it, Maggie?
She was
The
it
artist
was
that
called Lady from the Black Lagoon. It was about the woman who designed the Gill Man from from the Black Lagoon, who's not
Oh wow.
credited on any of that material. And so it was her sort of journey of digging up this woman's history and writing this whole book about her. And so Daughter of Daring, which I think comes out in like a month, we had advanced
March.
copies of it.
Yeah.
It takes the same sort of approach of like digging up this person who's kind of been systemically like pushed out of the frame, so to speak.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. But I wanted to go back to the short film because you've done when I was sort of making our gigantic Google sheet of everything you've done, going through your IMDb and looking at the credits, I mean, you've done a lot of short films and, as somebody who kind of watches actors pretty closely or at least like and knows a lot of young actors, it kind of tends to be that like after a certain point, at least the actors that I know kind of tend once they get, bigger jobs, they kind of tend to
Mm.
stop doing short film and you do them pretty consistently. I mean, there was obviously the one that
Yeah.
your brother directed and things like that, but you've done a ton and I have a love for short film. I mean, I help with a festival down in New Orleans. I screen them every year for their shorts program. My
Oh.
brother makes a bunch, So is there something about that format that sort of draws you to them? Or again, is it just like the project comes up and you go, oh, that sounds like, it'd be interesting to do or I have the free time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, of course, they have to be interesting. You've got to be around. You've got to be available. They don't take long to make, at least not to act
Hmm.
in them. Um, I think what I've always enjoyed is it's working with people. Often when you make a short picture, certainly here, you're working with people who are trying to get off the ground. You're working with people who are trying to either develop expertise,
Mhm.
or make their way in the industry. Um, and so that working atmosphere is generally a really good one to be in. They're not, so that combination of things. I'm going to
Mhm.
do one in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to go up to
Oh,
Liverpool, do another one. Yeah.
nice.
I got one day, I play a psychologist guy that goes into a prison to talk to a dangerous criminal, so
Oh.
yeah, so watch this space. I like them. I like
Hmm.
them. And
Mhm.
technically, it depends how short the short is. I mean, I've done
Hmm.
short films of 5 minutes long. I've done them 25 minutes long. But
Mhm.
they tend to be whatever you do. It's a kind of condensed version, or rather,
Hmm.
it's the technique neat. You've got to sort of
Hmm.
get it in. It's got to be. You've got to hone your storytelling. You're telling the story in pictures, and you ain't got a lot of time to do it. So
Hmm.
it's a good way of working.
Yeah.
In the way that really good short stories are really satisfying
Hmm.
to read. They're tricky, but I like them, and I
Hmm.
like the people that make them. And I'm glad too that there are always dedicated festivals for shorts.
Hmm.
Um, because we need to see them.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might have you know, one good idea. I mean, even just one image sometimes, for a filmmaker, for someone that
Hmm.
wants to work visually, maybe just one or two, one proper salient, one, you're going to hang this whole thing on. And sometimes it's not even until you get to, and you're shooting your short, that it comes to, that you get a breakthrough with it.
Hmm.
I've been on shorts and directors go, oh my God, it wasn't until we actually did it that I
Hmm.
realized what it was. It's nice. It's a good atmosphere to work in.
Yeah.
And some of them are remarkable,
Yeah. I
just
feel like a lot of people
remarkable.
think of them as like just sort of launch pads for then making a feature, but it's like, no, if you watch enough of them, like they're an art form sort of in their own because
They
they're
are, I
so
think.
contained.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why people might think that.
Hmm.
And it's a slightly, I mean, there's, yes and no. I mean, there's a kind of truth in it. You can't always, if you can't make I mean, some filmmakers do make shorts before they can make a full-length feature because they're after getting funding to
Hmm.
make a full-length feature.
Yeah.
Some people, so, it happens, people can make a short and it's the material that they would love to expand into a full-length feature, and they might want to choose to go that way.
Hmm.
Because out there are people, the people that eventually, if they're ever to be successful, those executive types that might get to make it happen for them, they have to see something with their own eyes rather than
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
have an idea described to them. So there's also that. Shorts are made strategically in that sense.
Hmm.
Um, but often it's just a really, really good way of telling a story. And I really like it. I like being in them. There was a great one. I'm going to tell you an anecdote. You got me going. I'm going to tell you an anecdote.
Okay.
There was I don't know, whenever this was 20, you'll know because you've got a list of the things I was in, but there was one called The Dance of Shiva,
Hmm.
and a short that I was involved in. Again, Branagh was in this as well, Ken Branagh. He's in the room with us today, isn't he, Ken Branagh? But he anyway, a fella called Jamie Payne, who I didn't
Okay.
know. He was a young filmmaker. He never made a film, trying to make a short. He was one of these people who wanted to be in films, but I've since worked with this guy on TV. Now he's a working director. But back then, when he was a kid, he had this idea for a short. And again, and it takes us back to other themes we've spoken about. He had this First World War idea, and based on an historical truth that there was once a Sikh, an Indian regiment that took part in a Western Front battle with the British, the Allies, in France. It happened. And anyway, he had this idea. He was going to make this. He made this short film, but he was a kid. Nobody knew him. You can't just make a First World War short. You need money. Anyway, he was ringing around, and somebody. It must have for months and months and months. Somebody. I'll cut a very long story short. Um, he fell in with some old retired legendary filmmakers. One was John Box. John Box was the great designer who designed, I don't know, he designed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and here and
Oh,
Mary Poppins and whatever,
oh wow.
He's the great old film designer. Another was Jack Cardiff. Jack Cardiff is the greatest of all the British film cameramen. Jack Cardiff is a legend. He made the Powell and Pressburger films. Jack Cardiff shot The African Queen even. This is the great Jack Carter. Anyway, but these guys, they'd stopped working. This lad, Jamie Payne, good case in point, he somehow talks to one. Let's, for argument's sake, let's say it was John Box. And Box said, "What a lovely idea. You know what? I can't help you personally, but I'm going to talk to." And he rang. Anyway, these old boys came out of retirement for one more time. John Box said, "I'll do it." And Jack Cardiff, the great cameraman, said, "Oh, I'll shoot it then." And suddenly, this lad had more than a calling card. He had anyway. Suddenly he got the money. We turned up at a studio in North London. I get there. I'm playing this priest guy. We're going to be 2 or 3 days. Branagh's there, and so they've built the trenches. There's all the cast, and there we are. And this lad, who I'd only spoken to on the telephone, Jamie, there he is now. Now he's gone white. Now it's all real, and it's the first Monday we're going to shoot this thing. And there was a lovely. We're in this. He built this. The first set we had was this again, box design is fantastic. Little dugout, it's a trench. There's a battle going on or about to happen. And we're all down in this sort of trench, and it's this little dugout, and there's a couple of officers and these men. There's a candle burning in a dish. It's horrible. And this is going to be the first shot. And this lad now is going to shoot. This lad's going to direct these legends and these people, and now it's all thing. And he's scared. I can see he's scared. He's like, he doesn't even, he's doing sort of same arm, same leg walking. He's completely like, he's gone. He's uncoordinated. He can't open his mouth to speak. Jack Cardiff, the great Jack Cardiff, playing with his lights, setting up. Obviously he twigged. He saw that this kid was scared. And he said, I was there in the room, and he said to him, Jamie, come here. Because, the first setup is the first setup. It's a big deal. And he said to him, did you ever see Black Narcissus? And of course, everyone's seen Black Narcissus, a work of art, He said, you remember that scene, it's up the Himalayas, and remember where so-and-so, the man knocks on, and he opens the door, and suddenly, like, the Himalayan wind flies into the room and blows the candle out, and the kid's going, oh, God, yeah, oh, yeah. And he said to him, would you like that? He said, do you want that? And the kid goes, yes, please. And he said, okay. He said, righto then, jolly good. And he got his lights out, did it there, he's got the thing, and then we had a bit of Black Narcissus, to start proceeding. And once, it was lovely. It was a really lovely thing to do, like putting his arm around him, going, come on, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And we made this, we shot this picture. And I can say I worked with the great Jack Cardiff. Yeah.
That is incredible.
People are lovely. Again,
Mm-hmm.
and I've found that all my working life. Even legendary people, even people that have done everything, been everywhere, got sort of golden statues on their mantle, whatever, it doesn't matter. People in this industry, for the most part, are kind. I've got all the time. They've got time for you. Just want you to be as enthusiastic as they are. They understand how exposing it can be and how scary it can be. All my work in life, I've on occasion there's been it's either an older actor or somebody that knows more. There's always people that know better. Put their arm around you and go, come on, look, this is it. It's lovely. And without that, we can't make anything. There's a generosity about it, because we're always up against it otherwise. And I'm here to tell you, that, like I say, it's a great way of working, and it's something I've always loved. Travel the world and meet people of the same ilk all the time. It's hard enough just to have got to the start line with making pictures, and these people we know that they're resourceful, and we know that they're tough, but also they're bright and they're kind, and some of them stay friends for life. What's not to like?
I think you lose sight of that sometimes too. I think people get too close into their own way, and it's nice to hear that, it's not always
I went to
like
Jack
that.
Cardiff's house. I went and had tea with him. He was probably 90 by this time. I went to his house in Saffron Walden, and he could see me. The Oscar that he won for the African Queen, it would have been the African Queen. He won a few Oscars. This is the man that shot A Matter of Life and Death and The Red Shoes and Black Narcissus and the African. This is the man who shot these pictures. And I'm looking at this mottled old Oscar, which is like right up on the thing. And he saw me looking at it. He said, he said, bring it, get it down. He said, right, you stand there. He said, and I'll take your picture with it like that. He said, I'm going, oh my God, Jack Carter's about to take my, He said, yeah, hold it up like you've just won it or something, So anyway, that's what I mean. They're like, they're irreverent.
Yeah.
Best kind of people.
That's beautiful.
Oh no, am I one of those actors now that all we do is just tell anecdotes?
No, the anecdotes are great. This is exactly what we're hoping for.
Time, gentlemen, please. Come on.
No.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be cognizant of your time too. We truly appreciate all the time that you've spent with us.
How long have we talked for? How long have we spent?
About 3 hours.
Almost 3 hours.
Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
God, you guys are like me. You can just talk.
Just yap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can
Isn't it
yap. We're
nice though?
yappers.
Isn't it nice just to speak? Isn't it
Yeah,
nice
It is. Yeah.
it
to
is.
talk
It
about
is.
things,
I mean,
to share
well,
things?
and it's just like what you just said, like the fact that like, you've been a veteran of this industry and we're babies in comparison and it just again, it's you having giving the time to us just randomly is just it's beautiful and we truly truly 100% appreciate it. And for this to be like our first guest of the podcast that we've
Yeah.
only really had what like not even 20 episodes yet. I mean,
Yeah.
Am I your first guest?
Yes. Yes,
you
you
are
Am
are.
I
yes.
seriously your first guest?
So yes. So we've I feel like we've peaked. I mean, I don't
That's class.
but
The one whose name is above the door, like the one whose family name is. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
One of my kids said to me, Dad, when you've spoken to those women, does that mean then that is their work done then? Does that mean they can stop the podcast?
no,
I
we
said,
got a
no,
ton more to
that's
go.
not, that ain't how it works, son. No, no, that's funny.
we've
Well,
got
maybe what we
we've
should
got far
do,
way to go, but
I don't want to tell you how to run your podcast, but maybe what we should do is
no.
is is perhaps check in with one another, like at some point in the
Yes.
future, a year
Yes.
from now, this
Yeah.
time next year or whatever,
Yes.
um, and see how things are going, both with you and with me, and um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
I
you're
think
and
that would be
willing,
hopefully,
great.
yeah.
yeah, of course I am, yeah, 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 of course I am. We can.
Um,
There's always things to talk about.
Hmm.
There's always
I
stuff
love
to.
it.
I don't even. Although we've spent 3 hours, I don't even believe we've scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Not really.
Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casey, you're going to read a load of books in that period, as am I, and we're going to be doing
Yeah.
stuff.
Well,
Hopefully, we can get to meet in person. I'd like that very much.
I
At
would like
some.
that very much too. We So right before we're still trying to figure out how guests work. So at the end of it, we're thinking at the end of every episode that we have with a guest, we're going to do kind of a quick fire round. So congratulations, you are the inaugural person that is going to go through this quick fire round. So are you
I'm
ready?
your guinea pig. I am ready.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So first off, what is your current music obsession?
Wow, Handel. I just read this book. Brilliant book. Now what's the guy's name? This is the book I'm into at the moment. It's a book about Handel's Messiah. It's an American writer called Stephen King, and it's about how Handel wrote the Messiah. And also, I'd read another book about Handel's time in London. Handel was born in Halle in Germany, but he spent most of his working life in Britain. Blah 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 blah. That's
Okay.
so. Presently, it's Handel, and
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
Interesting.
Perfect. All right. Current television or film that you've recently seen that you can't stop thinking about, which I think I know the answer to what you just said earlier, but
Yeah, Wicked. It's got to be Wicked.
okay, one book that everyone should read in their lifetime.
Tell you what, I don't know if I would attach that much importance to it, except there's a book by an American tech genius and public intellectual called Jaron Lanier, and he wrote a book called 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right
Mm.
Now. It's a
Mm,
short book. You can read it in about 30 minutes. Read it. I did.
Mm.
okay.
That's why I ain't no longer on social media, and I haven't been ever since.
Mhm.
Smart man.
That book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Jaron Lanier.
cesspool.
He's also um I'd like to meet him actually. He's also a musician. He's a jazz musician.
Oh.
He comes from and he comes from the 70s right back in AI. He's one of the world's
Mhm.
first AI pioneers.
Mm.
Anyway, him. 10
Okay.
arguments. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last meal on earth, what are you picking?
Kedgeree.
Oh.
Okay.
You
I don't
ever
think
heard
we
of
know
it?
what that is.
No,
Kedgeree
we don't. We're
was
too American.
it's one of those things the Brits brought back
Mhm.
from India, from the Raj.
Mm.
It's become a I don't know whether it resembles even what it must have done 100 years ago, but it's basically fish and rice, curried fish and rice. It's a breakfast with
Ooh.
egg and yeah,
Ooh.
nice.
Ooh.
Kedgeree.
That sounds
Yeah.
really good.
Go and order
Yeah.
Kedgeree. I've had
Yeah.
Kedgeree in New
All
York,
right,
which has been
Kesri.
fantastic. Yeah. And I tell you, used to do Kedgeree
Okay.
Balthazar, the cafe in New York.
Mm.
Uh, they used to do a Kedgeree. I wonder if they still do. Go, yeah, try it. Tell them I sent you.
Yeah.
Kedgeree,
Okay. All right. And
my
then
last meal.
finally, so
Yeah.
So finally, so the way that Maggie and I figure out what episodes we're covering, we usually do 2 a month, and we go through the spreadsheet and we pick the ones that we're
Mm,
going to do for each month. So we
mm.
would like you to pick a title in your filmography that we should cover for our next episode.
No
Um,
pressure.
No pressure.
well, our mutual friend.
We covered it.
We've done that one already. Yeah.
You're kidding.
We
We've
did that
covered
one
that
pretty
one.
early on.
Oh,
Yeah, we
where
both
was I?
love
Where
that
was
Yeah.
I
one.
when you were doing that? Oh,
We love that one.
I wish I'd been in
That's
the
one of our
room.
favorites.
Well, I'm here to tell you that um, only because someone asked me recently, what of all the things you played, like that you've played, which you think about most and what you're most fond of, and it was that one. It was doing that one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
your
that's one
friend,
of our favorites.
Eugene Rayburn.
Yeah.
I mean, there
Mhm.
you go. But that's my answer. But you've covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's
Have
taken. What a
another one.
shame. Okay. What would it be? What would it be? Here's one from left field. Streets of Yesterday.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
We've not heard of
Okay.
that
Is that
one.
one where
Well,
you play a
I went.
soldier, right?
No.
Or
I was here's the story. I potted this the 30 second version of the story. This is way back in the late 80s. I got a phone call from a guy in Israel, and he said, "Hello, Paul. I've got your number from somebody or other." And he said, "I'm a filmmaker." Well, actually, no, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm a surgeon. I'm going, who is this guy? But every few years I make a film. I said, why is that? Why every few years? He said, because I usually lose my shirt or my house on it. And anyway, I'm thinking, anyway, we had this show come. I said, anyway, he said, have you ever read Under Western Eyes by Conrad? And I said, yeah, I have. Conrad's one of my faves. He said, well, I've got this idea. Anyway, I went to Israel. I shot this film with him. And even while we were making it, it's the only time I was ever in Israel in my life too, which I've had a fantastic. This was 1988, and we shot a month there, and then the second half of the film we went to West Berlin when Berlin was still divided. It still had a year to
Wow.
go. We shot the rest of the film there. Anyway, as an experience, it's unlike any
Mhm.
I've ever I've ever had in making films. The film itself, even while we were shooting it, I was thinking this ain't even gonna cut together. I don't even know
Mhm.
if this is gonna, and it's probably terrible. But there's
We will have to track it down.
track it down. There's something about it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I guess I may have seen a screen. I don't know. I can't remember. It's a long time ago, but there's something about that. So there,
Mhm.
you
Okay.
asked for left
Okay.
field. You got left
Yeah.
field.
All right. We love
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
That's we don't normally go for like the typical, like we've yet to cover Withnail yet.
Yeah, we have yet to do that one.
Oh,
that's on
so
the
I could have said
docket,
with
but
no. Well, okay.
yeah.
You're allowed to do that. If you can't find Streets of Yesterday, and I don't even know that there are
Okay.
copies. I don't even know that you could see it. You might not be able to.
Oh, we have
to
we have managed to track down some stuff that you've done that kind of exists in like, really low quality
Postage
rips on
size
YouTube. Like
stamp.
that's kind of
Yeah.
a lot of what we've been doing is making sure we're able to track those down. That's part of the fun.
Well, I'd like that if you could find that and we could speak about that
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
really like that. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Listen, I've
Awesome.
enjoyed it enormously speaking with you.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you
Um,
so much. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate you willing with your time.
no, really,
It's
and
incredible.
honestly, and it's been fun. And let's do it again. Let's promise ourselves at least, if not before, then we meet a year from now, perhaps, and we
Yeah.
can do it again, and fill in some blanks and talk about what goes on this year. This year is going to be, I don't know, I can just feel it, momentous in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll always have plenty to speak about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
with one thing and
We'll have
another.
plenty of ground. We'll have covered plenty of ground by that point too. I think, we'll
Yeah.
be really ramping up. So we would love
And I'm
that.
so thrilled that I was your first guest. I had no idea. How about that? So you tried it all out on me. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just thank
What a way
you.
to go.
I mean, that's the way to do it.
What a way to go. Exactly. Okay. Well,
So,
listen,
well, thank you so
Happy New
much,
Year
Paul.
to you and to everyone that's listening,
You as well.
and see you around. See you
Yeah.
in one of these places out there, the Silent Movie Festival, the History Festival, one of
Yeah.
the Doctor Who fan shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talked to Paul McGann.
We did it.
We
We
talked,
did it.
and we did it. We did it. We absolutely did it. We did the thing. I pretty much as soon as we hung up, I bounced off my walls for quite, I
Yeah.
would say about an hour at least,
Yeah.
and a lot of like, holy shit, holy shit. But it just was, it was just everything. I mean, the fact that we got uh, Paul McGann singing just a little bit of David Bowie was, again, sort of on my bingo card, but not on my bingo card for 2025. But here it was, and I've been singing Starman all day today.
Yeah.
So that's, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Honestly, between that and you two managing to talk about your second favorite man, Gene Hunt, it's incredibly on brand for you. So incredibly on brand.
I saw the opportunity and I took it like the true fangirl I am. And that is on Gene Hunt's internet. So I'm just gonna say that right now. So I appreciate, and I told you offline, I so love that like Paul understood the nuances of Gene's character enough to like speak on it, and it was the exact same nuances of Gene's character that I honed in on and I loved. So I just thought
Yeah.
that was such a super special um part for me. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of those conversations where like I was so enthralled with everything he was saying that it took me, I think, 90 minutes into the conversation to have the like lucid moment of holy fuck, I'm on the phone with Paul McGann.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. There was a couple times where it was like I came back into my, like I like zoned out of my body for a little bit, and I was like,
yeah.
he's talking to you. You know that, right? This is not just like you're listening to like a convention conversation or it's a Big
Yeah.
Finish podcast interview. It's not that. He is literally responding to your voices, to your voice, to your questions. The last time I had that kind of experience was I was literally in the LA Forum watching Queen play, and I just was like, oh, that's Brian May and Roger Taylor. Like they
Yeah.
like were bandmates with Freddie Mercury. Like this is history. This is
Yeah.
historical people that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I know.
Like this man knows we exist now. He knows our names, he knows our faces. Like he knows. It's weird knowing that like this person we've admired for like almost a decade, probably a decade for you,
It has been,
knows
yeah.
who we are and knows our faces and apparently wants to do this again.
Wants to do it again and didn't hiss at me when I brought up downtime. I was for sure thought I was going to get some kind of
No.
reaction, but for it to be so positive, it was
Yeah.
it was kind of beautiful.
It was an interesting conversation. I think we managed everything we wanted to manage with this conversation, which was to kind of push it beyond the bounds of the ones he usually has at conventions and things, and I'm really proud of us. Like I know it looks like, you know, this is just going to pop up on your feed as kind of a surprise, but yeah, there's been a ton of work on the back end to make this work and make it happen, and I am proud of the both of us for pulling it off, because it wasn't easy, but it is also probably the coolest thing either of us have ever done, so.
It wasn't easy, but at the same time, like when it became a thing, it was it like was so easy. Like I like fully anticipated like not no responses, but just kind of like, you know, whatever, it is what it is, and it just, the fact that he even acknowledged us was enough for me. But so
Yeah.
for it to come together the way that it came together, it just, thank you, Paul. You're just the best. You're just the best.
Yeah.
Just the best.
I mean, yeah, this I don't think this could have gone any better than it did. I think it worked out so well that we're going to be floating on clouds for the next like couple months till you hear this. So if we seem weird,
that's why
on socials, that's why we've been hiding a big secret from you, and it's killing us inside.
And if it has anything to do with the fact that the next 2 months are going to be like like what you saw in January and February of like Paul McGann romantic hero, that's
why
our heads were at. So that's why. So
yeah,
I just so great. And I'm so excited for everyone to hear this, and I hope, please tell us what you thought about it. DM us, comment, whatever. Just let us
Please,
know.
yeah.
This we want to scream about it. It was such a fantastic experience. And,
yeah. We want to take every opportunity we possibly can to not brag about it, but talk about it with other people who care as much as we do. Because this is not a thing that happens a whole lot. Especially not for us as like people who are just doing this in their spare time.
Yeah. And for this to be our first guest, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we peaked. But I feel like we peaked a little bit.
I fear we may have peaked a little. I mean, I guess from here the only way is up if it went that well.
Do we just start asking for all the McGanns to come on? That's what we should have asked. Like, Paul, can we, like, the next time, can you just bring a brother on each time?
I'm
like,
telling you, I've been saying it. I should get in on the Call the Midwife season 14 junket and just get Steven on for the show.
I would love that. I mean, just to be like, I love your book. I'm sorry that I was late to the party, but my gosh. Oh, that book was so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that book was so good. And also, if Paul McGann writes a book, y'all can thank me, apparently, because he laid that at my feet. So, Paul, hey, if you need an editor, I'm a good QCer. I'm just going to let you know that. So, like, Maggie and I, we got you. We're there for you.
We will fully shoulder the blame for that if it happens.
So, all right. Well, should we talk about socials in our next title, even though Paul kind of announced what our next title is going to be?
Yeah. If you would like to follow us. Yeah. Very, very strange. But if you would like to follow us on socials, we are on Instagram, Bluesky, and Tumblr at girlies4McGann with the number 4. If you'd like to follow me on socials, I am on Instagram at MaggieRachel_, spelled RACHAEL, and I am on Bluesky at MaggieRachel.
And if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and Bluesky at KDB Photo. All right. What's our next title?
All right. Our next...
So wonderfully picked for us. I can't believe... I love that that's what it is. I love it.
I know. I can't believe I'm saying the words Paul McGann picked this next title for us. But he did, and it is 1989's Streets of Yesterday, which is a story of friendship and relationship between 3 men. Amin, a Palestinian nationalist, Joseph, an Israeli peacenik, and Colonel Shalit, a right-wing Israeli intelligence officer. It also stars... This is a great thing, because I'm just pulling this up on IMDb, because did not get enough time to prep for this. Yes. So, alongside Paul, this also stars... Oh, I'm going to mispronounce so many of these names. Stephen Burkhoff, John Finch, Alan Abutbol, and Alona Kimi. So, I'm really, I don't know much about this one. We just dug it up, like, after he said it. Because initially we could not find it, and it was not on our massive Google sheet. So this will be, and I'm really excited based on, you know, what he told us about making it, and I think that's gonna add a layer to it that, that'll be really fascinating. And it's also, like he said, like, kind of out of left field compared to the last 2 months of coverage we've been doing, which has just been all Paul McGann rom-coms all the time.
I was thinking about the last 2 months. I was thinking November and October and November, and how I was getting duds. So never mind. I just forgot that this is in the future. Sorry, I'm not a good time traveler, as you can tell. But on that note, I'm very excited about it too. Again, thank you, Lucia, for finding it and having it on your amazing master list, because we wouldn't be nothing without that list. So thank you so much. We're super excited to see this. And I think that about wraps it up for this just cracker of an episode. I'm Katie.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're your girlies from McGann, asking you, have you hugged a McGann fan today? Because they need it.